1 month before my marriage to the crown prince. A beggar arrived bearing a marriage contract, seeking my hand. That very night, my stepmother had me carried away in a small sedan chair. My younger sister took my place and married the crown prince. Unexpectedly, the crown prince resented this arranged marriage. He humiliated my sister at every turn, and allowed her to be mistreated by his concubines. The beggar I married, however, treated me with utmost care. He was actually the third prince, exiled among the common folk. Ultimately, he defeated the crown prince and ascended the throne. I was crowned empress and ordered the execution of the crown prince's faction. My sister crawled at my feet, raving that I had stolen her glory and fortune, cursing me to die a miserable death. That night, the new emperor plunged a dagger into my heart. If Elan showed no mercy to her own kin, how much less would she spare me? When I opened my eyes again, my sister and I had returned to the day the beggar proposed. My sister snatched the beggar's marriage contract, her lips curling with unchecked triumph. "I'll marry him," I smiled. Perfect. I'd been wanting a new husband myself. After all, helping the crown prince ascend the throne was far simpler than letting a beggar take the imperial seat. When Li Xiqing knocked on the door with the marriage contract, I was pretending to doze in the courtyard. Hai rushed in, her voice urgent. "Miss, it's terrible. A beggar with a marriage contract claims he's come to wed you. Father and mother demand you go to the front hall at once." I gathered my thoughts. The stabbing pain in my heart felt like a dream. I rose to my feet, smoothing imaginary wrinkles from my robe. "Let's go. I'll see him." In the main hall, Li Xiqing held the marriage contract aloft, speaking with great eloquence. This contract was personally written by the venerable grandfather, saying, "It cannot be forged. Does the Grand Tutor intend to break his word?" I showed it to every villager along the way. It clearly states the Grand Tutor's eldest daughter is to be wed to me. Should the Grand Tutor deny it, by tomorrow all of the capital will know the Grand Tutor's household is untrustworthy, breaking their word and reneging on their agreement. Father's face darkened. He was currently in the midst of imperial favor, at a critical moment for promotion. Not a single misstep could be tolerated. The Grand Tutor's household has 2 daughters, myself, and Sang Chilua, born to my stepmother. I have already been betrothed to the crown prince. Sang Chilua is the apple of my father and stepmother's eye. She absolutely cannot be given to a beggar. No sooner had I reached the front hall than I encountered Sang Chilua rushing in. She hurried past me in a few strides, hastily approaching to pay her respects. My stepmother's expression froze at Sang Chilua's sudden appearance, and she hurriedly whispered something to father. After what felt like the time it takes to drink a cup of tea, father finally spoke, as if he had made a decision. "Since that is the case, I have 2 daughters. I shall give my eldest daughter." Before father could finish, Sang Chilua interrupted, "Father, please wait." She then paced to the center of the hall and knelt straight down. "Your daughter has fallen deeply for young Masterly at first sight. I feel we are truly meant for each other." She glanced at Li Xiqing shyly, yet her lips betrayed an uncontrollable smirk. "Your daughter wishes to marry young Masterly. I beg you, father and mother, grant me this wish." I smiled. Who would willingly marry a beggar these days? In my previous life, Sang Chilua hadn't appeared at this moment. Under my stepmother's instigation, father had married me off to that beggar. Sang Chilua, meanwhile, had taken my place and married the crown prince. Unexpectedly, the beggar treated me with utmost care. Soon after, he was reclaimed by the imperial family, rising to become the emperor's most favored third prince. I, too, became the third prince's consort, praised by all. But on her very first day in the crown prince's residence, she became the laughingstock of the city when the crown prince refused to enter the bridal chamber. Later, She faced constant provocation and humiliation from the crown prince's concubines. Living a life of misery. That's why this time, she couldn't wait to snatch the marriage contract before me. My stepmother's face turned ashen instantly. She snapped harshly. Chilua, have you lost your mind? You are the legitimate daughter of the Sang family. How could you marry a beggar? Sang Chilua's expression remained stubborn. Her neck stiffened in defiance. Mother, I know exactly what I'm doing today. If I cannot marry young Master Li, I will regret it for the rest of my life. I beg you to grant me this wish. Seeing this, father could do nothing but agree. Sang Chilua calmed down, pulling her stepmother aside for a long whisper. Finally, she managed to soothe her stepmother, though the woman remained half convinced. On the way back, she intercepted me, her expression haughty. Sang Lan, I know you've returned too. This time, that seat is mine. It's your turn to suffer the humiliation of becoming a prisoner. I gazed at her and smiled sincerely. Then we'll see how much skill my dear sister possesses. Wouldn't marrying the crown prince be ideal? Starting at the very heart of power. Living in luxury and splendor. My dear sister. Aiding the crown prince to ascend the throne is far simpler than elevating a beggar to the imperial seat. Unlike my past life, this time my stepmother didn't hastily send Sang Chilua off in a palanquin to Li Siqing. Instead, she chose to marry Sang Chilua off in grand style on the very same day as me. The Grand Tutor's mansion married off 2 daughters in one day, one to the crown prince, one to a beggar, a tale the common folk relished. Most of the talk centered on Sang Chilua. Carefully shaped by deliberate public opinion, she was portrayed as an extraordinary woman, unconventional, trustworthy, and uninterested in power or privilege. I couldn't care less. Compared to these hollow words, tangible possessions held firmly in my hand mattered far more. In my past life, I married Li Siqing hastily, with neither dowry nor trousseau, struggling every step of the way. Now, cloaked in the imperial family's authority, my stepmother dares not withhold a single coin. The dowry of 120 palanquins has been solely mine since the moment I left the Grand Tutor's residence. After a day of intricate ceremonial rituals, I was escorted to the bridal chamber. I waited until the hour of the pig before lifting my veil and quietly instructing He to remove my makeup. This. The crown prince won't be coming. Rest well tonight, tomorrow holds a grand performance. True to my expectations, the crown prince did not spend the night. Before dawn the next day, clamor erupted outside the door. He hurried back to report. Lady, several noble consorts are at the door to pay their respects. I remained unhurried, instructing He to dress me slowly. Only after an hour did I emerge. The assembled women outside had long since grown restless. After the customary greetings, a woman in a crimson ruchuan, her hair adorned with peonies, spoke with pointed wit. Did the crown princess sleep well? Last night, the crown prince drank too much and stayed at Ziyun Pavilion, keeping this concubine up all night. Several concubines nearby giggled in unison upon hearing this. I studied her. And you are? Her attendant immediately stood ramrod straight. This is Zhao Liangdi. Zhao Liangdi, I've heard of her. The crown prince's favorite. The one who tormented Sang Chilua the most in my past life. How dare you speak ill of my mistress? Take her away, 20 lashes across the face. Strip her naked. How dare a mere concubine wear crimson before her mistress? My sudden, overwhelming presence silenced the entire room. Not a single maid or servant dared move, shifting glances between me and Zhao Liangdi. After a long moment, Zhao Liangdi snapped back, her eyes venomous and defiant. I dare anyone to try. I am the crown prince's most favored concubine. If you touch me, Sang Lan, the crown prince will not let you off. I thought she was something special. But she's just a parasitic bindweed clinging to the crown prince. I rolled up my sleeves, stepped before her, and slapped her across the face. The crowd was stunned by the blow, their expressions a mix of terror and secret delight. Clearly, she'd been bullied often enough. I turned to instruct He, continue slapping her face at this pace. By the 10th slap, the crown prince arrived. The parasitic vine threw herself into his arms, sobbing pitifully. Your Highness, I know not what wrong I've done. I came with good intentions to pay my respects. Yet the crown princess ordered my face struck. The crown prince frowned at Zhao Liangdi's swollen cheek, then turned to me with disgust. Are you truly so consumed by jealousy? Forcing your own sister to marry a beggar, yet possessing no tolerance whatsoever. Sang Lan, you are utterly repulsive. I lifted my eyes to meet this adversary from my past life. Compared to the haggard figure who once groveled at my feet, he now stood before me with a face like carved jade, radiating youthful vigor. Alas, he remains a stubborn, self-righteous fool who cannot distinguish right from wrong. Who else could lose but him? Zhao Liangdi nestled in the crown prince's embrace, weeping softly with a voice both melodious and sorrowful. Your Highness, it is this humble servant who erred. I should not have come to pay my respects today. The crown prince murmured soothing words for a while before turning his fierce gaze back to me. I calculated the time, it should be coming soon. Just then, a guard rushed in breathlessly. Your Highness, Eunuch Su has come to request you and the crown princess enter the palace. Newlyweds were expected to present themselves at court the very next day. The crown prince may have forgotten, but I certainly hadn't. Before retiring last night, I had already arranged for word of the crown prince spending the night with his concubine to reach the palace. After circulating all night, the rumor had transformed into the crown prince protesting the emperor's arranged marriage. The emperor already harbored grievances against the crown prince, viewing both thunder and dew as imperial grace. The crown prince's action, though seemingly a family matter, had crossed a forbidden line. Thus, early this morning, Eunuch Su came to urge us into the palace. As I had anticipated, the crown prince's act angered the emperor, who rebuked him in court. On the way back, with nowhere to vent his fury, he abandoned me halfway and galloped off alone. Passing through the long street, I saw a familiar figure, Sang Chilua, with bare face and wearing a sky-blue ruchuan. She was selling tofu on the street, mimicking how I used to do it. Beside her, the lavishly dressed crown prince was engaged in conversation. Sang Chilua's expression was resolute, her lips pressed together as tears welled in her eyes. She was accusing me before the crown prince of being vain and forcing her into a marriage with a beggar. I rubbed my temples and urged He to hurry. But no matter how fast the carriage went, it couldn't match a horse. The crown prince arrived at the mansion before me and had the gates shut tight. He knocked, but there was no response. He was determined to shut me out and humiliate me. A crowd began gathering around the carriage, pointing and whispering. He knocked repeatedly, but the door remained shut. As the crowd swelled, she paced frantically, her eyes red as a rabbit's. Princess consort, what shall we do? I pulled a golden hairpin from my hair and handed it to He. Keep knocking. Tell the people outside that the crown prince is hard of hearing, ask them to shout for him. If they can shout the gate open, each shall receive 5 taels of silver. And if anyone can break down the gate for me, they shall receive 500 taels of silver and this golden hairpin as a gift. He's eyes widened, her heart sinking, but she took the hairpin and followed my instructions. Where there's a hefty reward, there will be brave souls. Soon, 2 burly men joined He in pounding on the door. Outside, the shouts demanding the crown prince open the door grew louder and louder. Finally, the crown prince couldn't bear it any longer and sent someone to open the gate. I dismounted leisurely, thanked each person outside the gate one by one, and then slowly entered. The moment I stepped into the courtyard, a pair of hands clamped around my throat, pinning me against the wall. Crown Princess, you're quite something. Not only did you force your own sister to marry a beggar in your place, but today you dare gather a crowd to smash down the gate. Do you believe I could strangle you to death right now? I tightened my grip on his hand around my neck, drawing a slight breath. You'd better strangle me now. Otherwise, I can't guarantee last year's military pay or this year's mine collapse won't reach the Emperor's ears. The Crown Prince's expression shifted dramatically. His grip tightened. His teeth clenched as he snarled. How do you know this? What else do you know? Of course I know. I uncovered it while investigating you in my previous life. Otherwise, how could that useless third prince ever defeat a crown prince with such solid foundations? But I had no intention of telling him. I know everything. Ji Yun Zhou. If I die here today, your factionalism, embezzlement of official funds, and private army will be presented before the Emperor tomorrow. Guess what? Do you think His Majesty will spare you then? Do you know why? As Crown Prince, you still reside outside the palace and cannot take up residence in the Eastern Palace? He slowly released his grip, his expression thick with disbelief. How much else do you know? I regarded him impassively. I know everything. His expression darkened, and for several moments, I felt he might kill me. But he dared not gamble. Instead, he proposed a 3-point agreement. I would keep his secrets and aid his ascent to the throne. And in return, he promised me the position of Empress and vowed to cease all harassment against me. The next day, Consort Zhao sought out the Crown Prince in tears, demanding he punish me. Instead, he stripped her of her crimson robes, banished her from the palace, and confined her to her quarters for a month. She couldn't fathom why the Crown Prince, who had indulged her disrespect and verbal abuse just the day before, had changed so completely overnight. But I understood. This was his pledge of loyalty, his sincere resolve to cooperate with me. He came cheerfully to share the news, only to find me utterly unmoved. Princess Consort, aren't you pleased? The Crown Prince holds you in his heart. He punished his most favored concubine for your sake. I finished tracing the cold mountain pine painting in my hand and gently set down the brush. Hi. How should a woman live her life to be considered well-lived? She tilted her head, pondered for a moment, then shook it, unsure how to answer. Like Lady Zhao Liang, finding a master who adores her, becoming a golden cage bird? Amused when he's pleased, discarded when he's displeased? I asked her. Or like me, marrying into a high-ranking family, watching my husband take multiple wives and concubines, enduring constant provocation while forcing myself to be magnanimous? Or perhaps like ordinary women, marrying a decent man, him tilling the fields while I weave, spending the rest of our days in quiet contentment? Hai shook her head, looking at me with confusion. Princess Consort, aren't all these good? I looked into her eyes, speaking slowly and deliberately. Good. They are all good. But they are not my good. Hi. Have you ever considered that a woman's life need not be defined by marriage? Nor must she depend on her husband's family. Why can men enter government service, while women are confined to the inner quarters, becoming mere appendages bearing their husband's surname? In the Grand Tutor's mansion, I was the Grand Tutor's daughter, married to the Crown Prince. I am the Crown Princess. But does anyone know my name is Sangwon? Hai remained frozen in shock for a long while. I patted her shoulder and instructed her to keep this painting safe. It might fetch a good price someday. I wasn't sure how much of today's words Hai truly grasped. But my ambitions in this life are vast. If even those closest to me cannot awaken, how can I expect others to? Beyond fulfilling my duties as Crown Princess and advising the Crown Prince daily, I poured most of my energy into investments, commerce, and cultivating talent. After all, to ascend to the throne, Two essentials are required: military might and wealth. Military strength, the time is not yet ripe. But wealth, with my dowry and my foreknowledge, it would surely come more easily than in my previous life. I allocated half my dowry to business ventures and half to cultivating connections. With the Crown Prince as my backing this lifetime, everything became far simpler. No one dared cause trouble at my shops, nor did anyone dare obstruct my business dealings. Within a mere half year, my assets multiplied several times over, and my shops spread throughout the entire capital. One day, while inspecting shops in the city with He, we overheard commoners discussing an auspicious sign that had appeared in the capital. A household's well had begun spouting golden water, glowing with a radiant light at night, accompanied by faint dragon roars. People suspected a true dragon had descended upon the world. My suspicions were immediately aroused, and I sent people to investigate. It turned out Sang Chilua was behind the whole thing. Barely half a year into our marriage, she already couldn't contain her urge to expose the third prince's true identity. What a fool! In my past life, I pretended to sell tofu while secretly spreading information and liaising with the former supporters of the third prince's mother. Only when everything was prepared did I dare reveal myself. But in this life, at this moment, the third prince had neither troops nor wealth. Returning to the palace rashly would invite countless open and hidden dangers. How much could the emperor's paternal affection truly amount to? By the time the crown prince found me, Xiangrui had already been summoned to the palace. In the Golden Hall, the emperor declared 3 identical resemblances. He performed the blood recognition ceremony on the spot, bestowing the title of third prince upon Li Xiqing and granting him a princely residence. Sang Chilua naturally became the third prince's consort. For a time, they were the talk of the court. Just as in my previous life, the emperor showered this long-lost son with boundless affection. Gifts flowed like a river into the third prince's residence. He was summoned to the palace time and again to instruct the prince in governance. The emperor's boundless grace was on full display. Meanwhile, the crown prince faced repeated rebukes for his failure to suppress bandits. The stark contrast stirred turmoil in the court, with calls for a change in succession growing ever louder. This only fueled Sang Chilua's ambition. During a palace banquet, she cornered me behind the rockery by the Tai Chu pool. Stroking her jeweled hair, she sneered, "Sister, what do you think of my skills? Now that the crown prince is disfavored by his majesty, if you kneel and bark like a dog now, when the third prince ascends the throne, perhaps I might spare your life." He's eyes widened in fury, her hands trembling with rage. I gently pinched her cheek, replying with a calm smile, "Sister, be careful with your words. Since it concerns the future, it's premature to make such claims now. The outcome remains uncertain." Sang Chilua's expression shifted slightly, and she shot me a furious glare. "Sang Lan, you're stubborn as a dead duck. Just wait until the crown prince is deposed, I'll see how arrogant you can be then." I couldn't be bothered to argue with her. Stepping right past her, "Chilua, deposing the crown prince isn't something achieved with a few harsh words. In my past life, not long after the third prince was brought back, the crown prince was deposed." Sang Chilua believed the emperor deposed the crown prince because he favored the third prince. But that wasn't the case. The crown prince was deposed because I gathered sufficient evidence of his disloyalty. I had the third prince, through daily interactions with his majesty, gradually reveal these matters to the emperor, sowing seeds of doubt. Ultimately, the matter of suppressing bandits became the trigger, leading to the crown prince's removal. In this life, she's being far too naive to think she can change the air simply because of ineffective bandit suppression. Another month passed. The crown prince returned wounded, relinquishing his duties to recuperate. The emperor transferred most of the crown prince's responsibilities to the third prince. This only elevated the third prince's status, drawing ever more attention. As the third prince's favor grew, Sang Chilua became increasingly arrogant. At the princess's 100 flowers banquet, she entered before me and, ignoring the astonished stares, sat directly at the head of the table. Her maid whispered a warning. "Princess consort. This is the crown princess's seat." Sang Chilua feigned deafness, showing no intention of rising. Seeing me already entering the hall, the young maid grew anxious, raising her voice as she pointed to the adjacent seat and urged, "Princess consort, you're seated in the wrong place. This is your seat." Though the maid's voice was soft, it carried clearly enough for all the noble women present to hear distinctly. Instantly, every gaze in the hall turned to her. Sang Chilua shot the maid a displeased glare, her expression disdainful. "It's merely a seat. If the crown princess can sit there, why can't I? Who in the court doesn't know the third prince is most favored? What's wrong with me sitting at the head table?" The maid looked at me awkwardly. "Crown princess. This." I waved my hand and smiled. "It's just a seat. Since my sister likes it, I'll gladly give it to her. I can stand here for a moment, it won't matter." Sang Chilua couldn't figure out what I was up to. Thinking she'd won, she touched her hairpin and chuckled to herself. "Sister truly understands propriety." I smiled without reply, my sharp eyes catching the young maid slipping past the curtain toward the rear. After about 15 minutes, the eldest princess arrived. Once everyone had paid their respects, the eldest princess looked at me, still standing in the hall, feigning surprise. "Why has the crown prince's consort not taken her seat?" I curtsied, making no mention of the occupied seat. "Your Highness, I have admired your grace since childhood. Alas, your preference for seclusion meant I never had the honor of meeting you. Today, though my wish is fulfilled, the desk is too distant. I am greedy, I wish to serve at your side. Drawing nearer to you, I pray for your indulgence." My words were heartfelt, yet not entirely feigned. In my previous life, I had greatly admired this Princess Jiaqing. I sought to win her favor to aid the third prince, only to be shut out. Speaking of this princess, she was quite a remarkable figure. In her youth, she married into the Liao kingdom to preserve the Daqing dynasty. After 5 years in Liao, she personally slew the Liao king, coordinating with Daqing forces to destroy the Liao kingdom. Upon her return, she secluded herself, not appearing in public for a full decade. It was only after my death that the Grand Princess Jiaqing began to act. "She certainly knows how to speak." The Grand Princess's expression softened, then suddenly hardened. "But I have not appeared in the world for many years. Now this filthy thing dares to dance right in front of me." The assembled crowd, confused, hurriedly rose to their feet. I, however, knew. The Grand Princess was enraged. No ruler tolerates underhanded maneuvers on their turf that defy their authority. Especially not a princess who has just returned to power. Sang Chilua's act of usurping the nest was precisely the first strike to establish the princess's authority. "Third prince's consort. Please." 2 muscular maids approached Sang Chilua, gesturing toward the door. Sang Chilua's face twisted with indignation, her shame turning to rage. "It's just a seat. What's so special about it? I only attended this banquet out of respect for your seniority. The crown prince will be deposed sooner or later." I was merely. Before she could finish, a matron beside her delivered a sharp slap across her face, knocking her to the ground. The eldest princess's face darkened as she signaled for the maids to drag her out. "Slandering state affairs. 20 lashes. Drag her out and beat her. Let's see who dares." Sang Chilua slowly rose, rubbing her swollen cheek. "I'm the third prince's consort. Who dares strike me?" Alas, she'd met her match. This Princess Jiaojing was the one who had brought about the fall of the Liao kingdom. A minor prince's consort? She didn't even register in her eyes. Two maids struck with brutal force, beating Sangchilua bloody and mangled before tossing her out the palace gates. When the third prince learned of this, he sought justice from the emperor, only to be shut out cold for the first time. After the 100 Flowers banquet, I grew close to the princess. Beyond managing my shops and cultivating relationships with court officials, I spent nearly all my free time at the princess's residence. Over time, I discovered the princess was far more erudite and profoundly enigmatic than I had imagined. One day, she asked me, "Elan, if you set aside your identity as crown prince's consort, between the third prince and the crown prince, whom do you favor more?" I laughed it off. Court consorts do not discuss state affairs. But if I absolutely must choose one? I shook my head, silent for a long while. Just as she thought I wouldn't answer, I spoke with solemn earnestness. "I favor neither. I favor you, Your Highness, Princess Jiaqing. From the very start of my rebirth, my goal has been you, Princess Jiaqing." I refuse to believe that legendary woman, who composed poetry at 3, debated statecraft at 7, married for political alliance at 13, and personally slew the Liao king to reclaim lost territories at 18, would ever willingly submit to another. Nor do I believe that woman who aspired to be a model for all women, who pioneered the notion that women could enter public service, would abandon her ambitions to live in perpetual exile. Thus, I allowed the third prince to grow arrogant, inciting the crown prince to launch campaigns against bandits, while delicately balancing the tensions between the two princes, all to create an opening for the princess to act preemptively. The princess gazed at me steadily for a long moment, a satisfied smile curling her lips. "I truly did not misjudge you. Sang Lan, will you join me in overturning this realm and pioneering the path for women in officialdom? Let us shatter the cage of feminine virtues and restraints, freeing all women from confinement within the harem. From this day forward, let equality reign, merit shall determine position." I knelt on one knee, offering a respectful bow. "Your servant is willing to serve with utmost devotion." The third prince's foundation remains shallow, and he lacks the skill to win hearts. Compounded by his own lack of intelligence and narrow-mindedness from growing up in the streets, the few months the emperor crammed him with knowledge proved little use. At the slightest difficulty, his true colors showed, and he botched state affairs completely. I had people watching him constantly. The moment he made a mistake, impeachment memorials snowed down upon the imperial desk. The emperor, overwhelmed and furious, stripped the third prince of his political authority within 3 months. The court's prevailing winds shifted swiftly, transforming the once powerful third prince into a cold, neglected presence. Sangchilua paced anxiously, unable to fathom where things had gone wrong. In her previous life, the third prince had sailed through every challenge, never experiencing such profound neglect. In her desperation, she happened upon a eunuch I had arranged to discuss bandit suppression near her path. She suddenly recalled how the third prince had earned great praise in her previous life by eradicating mountain bandits. Thus, she urged the third prince to take on the task of bandit suppression. But the third prince of this life knew nothing of bandit suppression. No sooner had he entered the bandits' territory than he was captured alive. The bandits demanded 10,000 taels of gold and a 10-year pledge of no military campaigns from the emperor in exchange for the third prince's safety. When the news reached the imperial court, the emperor's rage struck his heart, causing him to spit out a mouthful of old blood and fall gravely ill. The court descended into utter chaos. The eldest princess summoned the crown prince to act as regent, then personally took command of 3,000 elite troops, donning armor to lead the charge and rescue the third prince. Before her departure, I saw her off at the city gate. In a voice only we could hear, I said, "Your Highness, rest assured. I have made thorough arrangements. Once you triumph over the bandits, those I have prepared will sing your praises throughout the streets and alleys. Your prestige will soar. The princess smiled and patted my shoulder. Sang-Ching, you and I are not enemies. That is good. I bowed respectfully, smiling without reply. The victory report arrived sooner than I anticipated. Within a mere fortnight, the mountain bandits were utterly vanquished, and the third prince was successfully rescued. With the Chamber of Commerce's active promotion, this legendary woman from a decade past re-entered the public eye. Her past deeds, slightly embellished, spread nationwide through storytellers, operas, and biographies. On the day she returned triumphant, streets emptied as crowds gathered to catch a glimpse of the princess. Thus, both wealth and public favor were secured. Only soldiers remained lacking. After the start of winter, the emperor's health fluctuated. Court intrigues intensified, while the crown prince secretly raised troops day and night. I too remained active, converting all my accumulated wealth into winter-proofed cotton garments and ample provisions for the frontier. 3 months later, the eldest princess received a letter from General Qi. He wished to follow our sovereign. Thus, all was prepared, awaiting only the east wind. The palace began summoning physicians frequently as the emperor's condition deteriorated. As time passed, he began pursuing ethereal, intangible things. I had underestimated the third prince. Common folk are most adept at seducing hearts. Under the guise of seeking renowned physicians, he slipped several alchemist charlatans into the emperor's service, earning renewed favor. The emperor consumed cinnabar daily, his vitality growing stronger by the day. Yet his mind grew increasingly muddled. The third prince was in theft as a prince of 7 pearls, standing as an equal to the crown prince. In the narrow palace corridors, I once again crossed paths with Sang-Chilua. Sang-Lan, you venomous woman, don't think I don't know you orchestrated the third prince's capture during that bandit suppression. Indeed I did. But what can she do to me? I pressed my index finger to my lips. Sister, be cautious with your words. Rumors without substance are best left unsaid. She stepped forward, her grip tightening on my wrist in fury. I detest your pretentious airs the most. Sang-Lan, don't think you've won. What does it matter that the crown prince governs? The emperor still obeys my husband's every word. I shook off her grip and regarded her calmly. My dear sister, why can't you ever learn? Before the dust settles, the outcome remains uncertain. Besides, at this stage, does what the emperor says even matter? Never mind. She wouldn't understand anyway. As time passed, the side effects of the cinnabar poison became apparent. On a peaceful afternoon, the emperor collapsed face first onto his desk and never rose again. Court physicians came and went, managing only to temporarily sustain his life. Even the elixirs that had been effective until recently were now gradually losing their potency. Thus, the emperor grew even more dependent on the third prince, constantly urging him to seek out immortals and elixirs. This only emboldened the third prince's faction further. Not only did they systematically marginalize the crown prince in court, but they also brazenly seized control of the palace. After consulting with the eldest princess, we decided to turn the tables on them. The next day, rumors began circulating throughout the palace. The emperor intended to pass the throne to the third prince. This news sent the crown prince into a panic. He secretly gathered troops, preparing to seize the palace. Simultaneously, I leaked news of the crown prince's coup plans to Sang-Chilua. The third prince grew even more anxious, pressuring the emperor to write an abdication edict overnight. In his desperation, the emperor collapsed into unconsciousness, his life hanging in the balance. Under cover of night, I released carrier pigeons to alert the garrison outside the city, ordering them to stand ready to purge the court of traitors. Still uneasy, I dispatched multiple messengers using different routes to ensure the message reached its destination. Hai helped me change clothes. Ever since she understood my ambitions, She had never once addressed me as crown princess again. My lady. The night grows deep and the dew heavy. You should rest early. I gently clasped her hand, my heart racing with excitement. Hi. Tonight will likely be a sleepless one. At the 3rd hour of the night, the palace bells tolled. Exactly 45 chimes. Emperor Qing passed away, and the entire nation donned mourning robes. When General Qi and I arrived at the palace, the sky was already turning pale. The forces of the crown prince and the 3rd prince were still locked in battle. Our horses entered the palace gates as if passing through an empty realm. Everywhere, corpses and blood spoke of the palace coup's brutality. Before the hall of auspicious virtue, the cries of battle and the clash of blades continued unabated. I saluted General Qi and stepped back, leaving the professionals to handle their work. Within half an hour, the forces of the crown prince and the 3rd prince were subdued. Sang Chilua once again knelt at my feet. Gone was the regal elegance of days past, her eyes blazed crimson as she demanded. Sang Lan. Why you? Why the 3rd prince? Hai tugged me back 2 steps with obvious distaste. Her voice sharp. Miss. Keep your distance from her. She's never had good intentions. Sang Chilua ignored her, her eyes hollow, consumed by impotent rage. Why is your luck so damn good? Sang Lan. Why don't you just die? I should be the empress. I should be the most honored woman in all of Daqing. How dare you? I clearly chose the 3rd prince. Why did you win again? In a rare moment of patience, I crouched down to explain. My dear sister, you were mistaken from the start. No matter whom I chose, I would have won. Because in both past and present lives, I never once considered entrusting my honor, disgrace, or ambitions to another's hands. You could never understand that. Her eyes suddenly flashed with savagery. She yanked the golden hairpin from her hair and lunged at me with it. Then die. We'll start over. This time, I'll definitely win. Too bad. You won't get the chance. General Qi suddenly kicked her, flying several meters away. The pain left her curled on the ground, unable to rise. After a long moment, she suddenly went mad, bursting into maniacal laughter. Sang Lan. What good is your victory? The crown prince has countless consorts. Sooner or later, he'll tire of you. I curse you to ruin and a miserable death. I rubbed my temples. My sister is utterly foolish. Still unable to see the situation clearly even now. The crown prince? Chilua. Who told you the crown prince would be the ultimate victor? After today, the entire Great Qing will belong to Princess Jiaqing. And I leaned down, pinching her chin. From now on, you shall address me as Your Excellency. With a light flick of my wrist, she crashed to the ground, her head smashing against the stone wall. She was knocked unconscious. I walked slowly forward and crouched before her once more. Sister, do you know? Had I not supported the 3rd prince to challenge the crown prince, you would never have lived to enter the palace. But she could not hear. As soldiers escorted the 3rd prince past, he stared straight at me. Sister-in-law, I regret not insisting on marrying you back then. I smiled. I also regret helping you back then. I spoke of my past life, he spoke of this one. Dawn began to peek through, the sun's golden light spilling down, bathing the endless palace halls in a brilliant, azure-tinged gold. I seized General Qi's sword and plunged it fiercely into the 3rd prince's chest. In my past life, you gave me a dagger. In this life, I repay you with a long sword. From this day forward, we are even. When the Grand Princess sent word asking for my opinion on the disposition of the Grand Tutor's residence and the Crown Prince, I replied with 4 words, entirely up to you. As a subject, one act of audacity is enough. How could one presume to meddle in every matter, knowing no bounds? The bloodstains on the solitary willow tree remain splattered and wet, never drying from the hour of Qin on this day. Spring of the 37th year of Qingli. The empress ascended the throne and changed the nation's name to She. This marriage contract was personally written by the venerable elder saying, "It cannot be forged." Does the Grand Tutor intend to break his oath? I. The empress abolished outdated customs by appointing the former crown princess Sanglan as chancellor, thus setting the precedent for women to serve in the imperial court. Upon ascending the throne, the empress implemented new policies, selecting the capable and virtuous for office. Regardless of gender or birth, all could enter the court as officials, be in theft as marquises, or appointed as chancellors. I served by the empress's side, implementing reforms alongside her, transforming mindsets, and establishing schools for women. Women were no longer mere tools for political marriages, they could now master their own destinies. Within just 3 years, the national ethos transformed profoundly. Outdated customs vanished, and the entire Shi dynasty flourished. Gradually, I was no longer the sole female minister in the court. Female generals emerged at the frontiers, and women achieved top honors in the imperial examinations. Another decade passed. My students spread across the land, and women truly held up half the sky. I petitioned the empress for leave, trapped within palace walls for 2 lifetimes. I had fulfilled my mission in this life and yearned to see the wider world. The empress, ever tolerant of me, hesitated. The day before my departure, the empress and I raised our cups together. By the end, both of us were slightly tipsy. Unusually, she spoke to me of her experiences with the marriage alliance. Beyond Ning'an lay the grasslands. Traveling north from the grasslands, crossing the snow-capped mountains, one reached the boundless desert. The people of Liao loved to gallop across the grasslands. It was said that further north lay a vast expanse of water. Sanglan. These sights I shall likely never behold again in this lifetime. See them for me. The day I departed was a bright spring day. The empress did not come to see me off. As I passed through the city gate, I waved backward without turning my head. I knew a streak of bright yellow must be watching me from the city walls. The end.